Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to another edition of the Women Business Leaders Show, where we bring lessons from women business leaders to leaders like yourself so that you can improve your management style, so that you can find new opportunities, so you can overcome some of the challenges of today's workplace. So today we have Lindsey Sharratt joining us from England, and she works a lot with companies about finding their direction and working with their people and bringing out the best in them through her company. And she does a lot of consulting work, and she's agreed to share some lessons today, particularly in the area of overcoming gender stereotypes. We have a lot of feelings, and I think Lea and I have brought up on the show before that, the way our companies work, they're very structured in a certain way that's pro-men, and that's something we need to think about and be intentional about to overcome that, to create equal opportunities. Not that we have men against women, but to give everybody an opportunity to bring out their best skills and develop what they want to develop. And Lee's going to help us with some lessons on that. For those of you who don't tune in as often, my regular co-host Lea Woodford is over there, Smart Femme magazine editor, and also the host of the Smart Femme conference. We both have a strong interest in women in business. Myself, I'm the Shawn. I'm a corporate lawyer by training. I help people with ownership and control issues when I'm practicing law, partnership agreements, mergers, capital raises, contract negotiations. I do all of that in my day-to-day corporate practice, but then I do a lot with the future of business, which is where this show comes in. Did a TEDx talk several years ago on women in business, and I've been deep in the women in business space ever since. And this show is about you, the viewer, to bring you lessons that you can use. So we're going to dive into that in just a second. Before that, though, I want to ask you to give us your comments, whatever you're seeing, whatever you're learning as we go. Just drop the comments. You might be watching on one of our LinkedIn feeds. You might be on the Women Business Leaders YouTube channel. You might be on the Shawn McBride fans and audiences. Wherever you're at, drop those comments. We want to hear from you. What are you taking away from this? But what can we cover for you in the future? And as a quick reminder, we do not do investment advice or legal advice on the show. For those issues, consult your own advisors. Everything here is just for your education. So with that, welcome, Lea. Thanks for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Good to be here.
Yeah, there's Lea from the beautiful Smart Femme Studios. This is an interesting topic, and I guess, Lea and I often talk about, how do we make environments where it's not the genders competing against each other, but it's open to everybody. And when we were talking, Lea, about getting the show framed up, the thing that came up was these gender stereotypes and how do we build around them. So why don't you just give us kind of your preliminary thoughts on that? What are we seeing right now, and how can we start to get better environments?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing that I find really interesting is we have this focus on discrimination and why we don't have more women in boardrooms. Mm-hmm. And from 20 years in corporate, probably 20 years ago, I would have agreed that there was a concept that women couldn't be at the top, women couldn't lead. Mm-hmm. It's a long time since I've seen that. What I see now is women being expected to behave in certain ways mm-hmm. that would be rewarded in a man and not rewarded in a woman, or vice versa. So there are behaviours that if a man does them will be called assertive and, showing of leadership and will be acknowledged as this man is a leader. Let's acknowledge him.
Yep.
And then if a woman performs exactly the same behaviours, uses the same words, acts in the same way, she's considered aggressive or pushy.
Yep. Well,
it's very interesting that that isn't changing.
It is, and I want to underscore that a little bit. So when I did my TEDx talk, I didn't want to be up there just talking generality. So I looked at a lot of research studies, and the research studies will show you, if you put men and you put women in a situation, in a controlled environment, there's many times men and women will behave differently. They'll behave differently towards compensation. They'll behave differently towards how they work with people in a cooperative environment. They will act differently. So men and women do behave differently. And then, the other thing is there's a lot of books out there. I read a lot of leading books about women in business. And many of them, the advice is, well, just act like the men, do what the men are doing. If you do that, you're going to be successful. And I think that's a recipe for failure. And I think that's kind of what you're starting to hint at, Lea, is it's not as simple as just copy and paste or try to act like a man.
Absolutely. It's very complex. So I went out into the world of IT 20 odd years ago, showing my age now. And I got into management and I did really well, but I'm quite thick skinned and I don't get easily sidetracked from where I'm going with things. And yes, I got criticism. But the things that I did and the ways that I behaved, looking back now, would probably be considered quite masculine. Mm-hmm. So essentially, I got rewarded for doing things that people expected a manager to do. And they were all things that you would expect a man to do. Now, I also have skills that would traditionally be considered feminine. Mm-hmm. So I do, obviously, my second degree is psychology. I started out in computer science, and psychology came a lot later. I do a lot of collaboration. I do a lot of bringing out the skills in people, getting them to work together in teams. So I have what would be considered a mix of skills now.
Yeah, well, cooperation.
Yeah, cooperation.
Yeah, cooperation is one of the ones that comes up when we do this. When we look at the studies, when you put women in situations, women are more likely to create cooperative bonds and work with other people, share compensation, share outcomes. Absolutely. Much more likely for women.
Yes, I'm gonna agree and disagree with that.
Yeah.
Having been in corporate America selling software in the 90s in a very male-dominated profession, what I found is that while there is some women in leadership, oftentimes women are competing, they're hesitant to send the ladder back down. Because when they send it back down, then they're competing with their subordinate for a position. Yeah. And they really, until we have more women in leadership, I think it's going to be a cycle that perpetuates itself.
No, I think that's a really good point, because that's further down the road where I took my stereotyping. So if you see a man in leadership and he's helping the people below him, then people will say, look, he's mentoring and how good it is of him. If you see a woman doing it, people will say, oh, look, the women, how sweet. Look how they all stick together. Look how they all help each other. And it's like, well, hang on, this guy and this woman, they're doing exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. How come it's positive when he does it and not when she does? And also, I think there's a lot, you've probably seen it as well, because I think, albeit in different continents, we've been in quite similar industries and environments, mm-hmm. that women who did well had to be more male than the men, and probably fitted in more to that stereotype where it was wrong to show any sort of trait that would be considered feminine or weak, because then that got you frowned upon.
Yeah.
Well, I found that to be true as a woman, but I'm 5 feet tall, and I like my big girl shoes, and there were no women. Yeah. And there were a few engineers, but there were no women in sales. And I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to do it my way. I'm going to wear my big girl shoes. I'm going to wear my little Ally McBeal suits. And I'm going to be the best version of the person I can be. Yeah. And that worked for me. I'm 5 feet tall. It's hard to exude a lot of male energy. Yeah. And I have a lot of masculine energy, building my own company. Yeah. But I think women don't realize, and this is really sad to me, there is a lot of power in being, harnessing both energies. Male
Absolutely.
And female. We have both.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
I think we need to harness both.
Well, a lot of people say that men and women both have male and female characteristics, right? And I tend to be a little bit more on the sensitive side. I connect with people on that level. And so, some people be like, oh, you're girlish or whatever. But that's these various stereotypes, Lee, right? Is everybody's got to bring their mixture to the table.
Yeah,
absolutely. The challenge is not to try to force people to act a certain way because of their particular gender.
So this is my hobby horse. So I get very annoyed when people say this is a masculine behavior or this is a feminine behavior. How about this is a human behavior?
Right. So and how about tolerance? I like to see more tolerance, not only in the workplace, but in our country right now. Yeah. When I was selling software, I got to tell you, pretty much everybody, all of our engineers were on H1s. Yeah. They were from India and China. So to me, this is just so archaic right now, seeing the just the nastiness and we've just got to come together, and we've got to hire people for who they are and what they bring to the table, and not their skin color,
Absolutely.
or their gender.
Absolutely. So it's bizarre to me that we have to say, oh, people are, we put them in boxes. So it's social identity theory, with their in-group or their out-group. So, if you're a man, woman is out-group. If you're a certain class or race, the others are out-group. And okay, some people will tolerate that, but we build up these differences. So I ran teams because I manage teams across the world. I've had teams in Africa, I've had teams in India, I've had teams in the States. And you know what? There's good people and bad people in all those teams, just the same as there are in my teams in the UK. And some of them are guys and some of them are girls. It's people are people, and we're all very, very different. So I always say individual differences outweigh gender differences, class differences, race differences. You have to take people as individuals. And when you start looking at all their individual talents as a human being, that's when you find where they fit, how you can work with them, how you can bring them on the best. And that's what I try and teach people that I mentored. Don't look at yourself as, oh, I'm a woman, I'm this or that. It's obviously part of you, but we're all so composite. We're made of all these different things. And then we get put in these boxes, and somebody expects you to act in a certain way because you live in this one box.
Yeah.
Whereas you're in 20 boxes or 50 or 100. It's ridiculous to expect that everybody should be the same.
Yeah, well, you're talking about a massive mindset shift, right? I mean, this is a top-down shift that cultures need, right? And I talk a lot about individuality. People see my crazy do business differently suit. The whole message of my visual is
I bring my dog to work.
How can you be unique?
I approve that.
Right? That's very, Lea, that's a very, and I bring my dog around sometimes too. I like having the dog around, but I mean that's individuality. That's bringing yourself to the place. We had a conversation about that earlier. You're talking, Lea, about allowing people to have their individual characteristics, whatever mixture it is, whether it's, what people would stereotype as male versus stereotype as female. Bring your mixture to the workplace. How do we change cultures top down to allow that so that people get out of the old modes of thinking and start thinking in a different way?
Absolutely. So when I got into management, which I have to say I never wanted to be, I was a business analyst. Mm-hmm. And then I got into technical because somebody said to me, hey, well, yeah, you're a good business analyst, but you'll never be technical because you're a girl. So I went out and did all my technical qualifications because, never say to me you can't do that. It has good effects.
Watch me.
So I got all my Microsoft qualifications, and then I was a techie. But that was it for me. That was where I wanted to go. And then I got put into management because people saw things in me that I didn't see. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I liked it because I could help people. And I then did the big leap. And years down the road, I did the psychology degree. And in between, I did lots and lots of mentoring. And people will come to me and say, how come you get these results? You go into companies and you consult and the teams turn around and the projects do well and people are happy and they get on. It's understanding as a leader. And I did this in my TED talk to a certain extent. Leadership isn't about you. Leadership's about the people that you're leading. The rest just management skills.
I think that's a really good point. And I think a lot of leaders are missing that, especially in tech. We've seen irresponsible leadership with Uber.
Yeah.
We've seen irresponsible, and while I love Elon Musk, I'm questioning some of the things he's doing as a leader right now.
Yeah, certainly me too. Because I'm a big fan, but I'm looking at him now and saying, this surprises me that you're going this route. Yeah. So I think as a leader, you have to stop looking at it about being what you want and what you're doing. You can do that as a person, but as a leader, your results are what your team does.
And
So I've always measured all my leadership success in how well my team are doing.
Well, that's a fun,
exactly. It seems it's almost like parenting. You know, when you tell your children to do as you say and not do as you do, as a leader, you are creating the culture.
Absolutely.
And it's your habits, and people are watching you. Let's face it, you know, people are watching Elon Musk right now. You know, there's a reason. I mean, and we've seen some really, not only in technology, but pharmaceutical, that really young CEO that's in jail right now for the EpiPen and escalating the cost. And then again, with the AIDS drugs, I don't know if they're too young and don't have the, I think that's part of the problem we're seeing, especially in technology and some of these emerging pharmaceuticals, is they're so young and they really don't have any experience, and they come from a different culture where they're growing up like this instead of really having the face-to-face conversations and the deeper conversations.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that certainly tech has had a huge effect on how we interact as people. And if I look at the younger people that I've mentored, they haven't got that engagement level. And I think some of them struggle to engage to that level and actually think about consequences of the relationships with people, because everything's online. And when you're online, we all know, we see the keyboard warriors and they say these awful things. And then you meet the person and you think, you know, you're actually nowhere near as awful as I thought you would be. And they wouldn't dream of saying that to someone's face.
Right.
But it's that level of separation. And I think, yeah, quite probably you're right in business. If you have grown up in that detached environment where you're just making things for the online market, yeah, it would take away that possible realization that this is something that you're doing for people, to people.
Right.
Now, is that something that you and your company do? Do you go into tech companies and give them access to becoming better leaders?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I mean, obviously my background's tech, but any sort of company. So I concentrate on company culture, on leadership skills, on understanding the people in your environment. But of course, the culture is huge. So I also get people coming to me and saying, I'm not happy in this company. I started out coaching and mentoring before I went back into the corporate side. And sometimes, you know, it just isn't a fit. The management does not want to change. And I say to people, if you're in a position where you can change the culture, change the culture. If you don't like the culture, change the culture. If you're not, change your department, change your team. If you can't change it and you can't live with it, then sometimes you need to move on. But yeah, it's huge. The company has to take ownership of that. You can impact your own little circle of influence.
Right.
And sometimes I've found that people will look at what I do and say, how did you do that? And I can get people to do what I do because they see the result.
Yeah, well, people need to be motivated, right? You need to be motivated to implement, motivated to change, right? There's got to be some drive, right? I mean, you know, from the top down, if it's coming from the top down, top has to see the benefit from it, right? If you're in the middle, you've got to have a reason to make that change. It's one of the results, it's for the cause. There's got to be some reason, right? That's when people really change, when there's a reason to change.
Absolutely. So to me, it improves your bottom line and it increases your productivity. So the biggest causes, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but the biggest causes of loss over here are absenteeism and presenteeism. So many people are sick and stressed because of the workload and the state of the company. And I say, you know, you can change your culture and all of a sudden you're going to have engaged people, happy people, and happy people don't get sick. I know it sounds quite cynical. It is quite cynical. But from a company's point of view, if they're wanting a result from improving their culture, well, there's a result. You know, your bottom line improves. Your staff are at their desks and they're happy and they're working and they're doing better work.
Right. Happy people don't get sick as often.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I have a question for you. Is there an example of a company that you think is doing really well with this?
Wow. I think the newer companies do better and the smaller companies do better. So over here, when I talk to, and you know, interesting when you're saying it, it's often the tech companies, but the small tech companies,
right.
the small companies that are going out and doing media, software development, the companies that are built up around the owner are doing much better. Big corporates, I see a lot of people ticking the investors in people box.
Yes.
I think a lot of them genuinely think they are doing better. But when you talk to the staff, they're not experiencing the result of it. So I think the boxes that are being ticked aren't always the right boxes. And I think the big problem there is communication. I think when companies get over a certain size, they lose the communication chains. So instead of them having the pathways in place that they know what's happening. So back in the 70s, you remember when the IBM guys used to walk around the floor and know what was going on. I still do that. And I've always done that. And it's so old-fashioned now, and it works.
There's a lot of soft information to be collected just from looking at people's expression, how they're doing, who's at their desk.
Absolutely. You can tell so much from a 5-minute conversation with people. I mean, not in a stalky way, obviously. If they think the management are coming to check up on them, that's not a good thing. But if you're genuinely interested, and people can see that you're doing that, I think it's really beneficial. So absolutely, to the big companies, I say, you know, if you're a CEO, you shouldn't be maybe going out and doing this yourself unless you've got an awful lot of time, but you have a whole team underneath you. What are your direct reports doing? You've got a leadership team. They have reports. Why is that information not getting up to you? And if you've got really high levels of sickness and you've got really high attrition rates, what's happening in your company?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So Lee, you've given us a lot of great information here on this segment. We really appreciate it. We're going to want to have you back again. But in the meantime, if people are connecting with what you're saying, they're thinking maybe they need some help, they maybe want to think about adjusting their culture, how can they find you and your work?
I'm on Corporate Cognitive. Corporate Cognitive is my company. I'm on LinkedIn. You'll find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm always happy to answer questions. This is really big for me. So I think, as Lea was saying, we need a whole cultural shift on this, not just within companies, countrywide, worldwide, how we see people and treat people.
It's a social movement more than a cultural, I think. I think it's going to require, you know, England, America.
Yeah.
It's a complete social movement more
Absolutely.
so.
Yeah. And we need to talk. We all need to talk and understand each other and where we're coming from. I mean, stereotyping is because of my degree and my PhD and what I do, it's something that interests me, and I implement that in my corporate work. But yeah, it's a whole bigger picture than that.
Yeah.
See, now I think if everybody could just bring their dogs to work, they would just be happy.
I'm going to call my dog in there.
Oh, everybody's seeing her ears. This is her. You know, they're going, what is that that's popping in and out? And I just thought I would show that. But no, this was such a great conversation. It's been one of my favorites, Shawn, because I think it's so important.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Lee.
Thank you for inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, folks that are watching, pat yourself on the back for doing the hard work. Remember that you can check us out. Go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, drop your comments. We do want to hear from you. So let us know what we can do to bring you more of the content you need, and we definitely want to hear your takeaways. So we'll look forward to seeing you on a future edition of Women Business Leaders. We'll be bringing Lee back again at some point here in the not too distant future. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you.